In this video, I'm going to debunk 6 myths around avoidant attachment style. I used to be avoidant, and it pains me to hear a lot of comments, hatred comments about avoidant. Not that they are perfect people, but in a way there are so many things people say, so many assumptions that we make about this attachment style. It's very important for you to gain clarity on those things if you're dating an avoidant or trying to get back with an avoidant. This is what I'm going to do today in this video. Jingle.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
Myth number 1, avoidant don't need or want love. This is probably the most common one. They just like to be on their own, they live their own life, they don't need me, they don't want me, I'm wasting my time, etc., etc. The fact is, avoidant, they value love, they value connection as much as anyone. And I would argue that at the beginning of your relationship, if you broke up with that person, or even if you're still in a relationship with them, you saw they were in love. They were invested, they told you nice things, they showed that they care about you. It's beyond love language. And so you knew that there was something. But the problem is that they prioritize their autonomy. And sometimes they may express their feelings in a subtle way. It's not that they don't have feelings, it's that they don't express feelings the right way. So for me, it took years to be able to understand my feelings, and when I help people overcoming and developing secure attachment style when they're avoidant, that's the first thing we do, is we try to look at, okay, hold on, make the list of all the emotions, and they come up with 3. Okay, I'll send them a pager with all the list of emotions, and like, okay, now the idea is to be more aware of those emotions. First thing. And the second thing is, how can you express them? So sometimes we have a filter, we think something, we're about to say something nice to someone, but because in a way that it comes across as being needy, which is like bad for us, because it's not how we would perceive and how we would experience love in childhood, we don't do it. And so what you have to understand is their need for independence doesn't mean that they lack desire for closeness. So it's really about how you can create foundation, right dynamic for them to open up. They can open up. It's just a question of them willing and feeling safe, but they can because they feel something. It's about expressing the blocker is there. Myth number 2, avoidants are emotionally unavailable. And again, for the same, exactly the same mechanism that I discussed before, it's just that they have no idea of their emotions and they struggle expressing emotions. But they experience emotion. Everyone experiences emotions. Avoidant decide to dismiss those emotions, but they will feel those emotions. And again, it's a fear of vulnerability. If I cry, boys don't cry. So I'm not saying that all men are avoidant, but this idea of like, you don't cry when you were a little kid. We don't cry, you're strong. And so we want to reproduce this same sort of pattern, this same image that we brought up with. So it's also about this ability, and something that I got for many years. We put the self-sufficiency above everything. And it helped us. That's the thing, that's the problem, is that when a coping mechanism works when you were a child, more than once, a few times, we realize that if I escape this situation, actually the outcome is quite positive. So I'm going to still doing that. I'm going to still avoid confrontation. That's a coping mechanism. And that's not healthy in the context of a relationship, right? And so what they're doing is pushing away things on the side because that's how they cope with things. Is it the right way to deal with things? No, but that's how they cope with things. And so it's not about, it's not an inability to form emotional connection, it's just that they're used to do things this way. So, of course, when you're dating someone avoidant, the idea is to, again, provide and create a secure secure base, that's the word I was looking for, secure base for your partner to open up and show them the way. Be role models. So it's not about confronting them. It's not about blaming. It's not about venting or being negative. It's about showing them, look, I can be vulnerable and you don't feel less of me, right? We connect. This is how we connect as a couple. Myth number 2, pursuing avoidant partner will make them more open. The fact is, when we pressure an avoidant, they will freak out. So it's really, and it's difficult because you need to find the right balance. If you pressure an avoidant, they'll freak out, they will feel invaded, they will feel pressured, and they will withdraw. So it's about building trust, building respect, respecting their boundaries, their need for space. This, and only when you do that, you will create a condition for them to open up. So it's about understanding patience and nurturing that relationship of respecting, knowing, and that's why it's important, that's why I make those videos, is because it's not about them being wrong, them being selfish, it's about that's how they function. That's how they function. So either you decide, I don't want this in my life, I don't want to be with someone who behaves this way, or you say, okay, I know he functions like this, I have the user manual, Alexi gave me the user manual, so I can work around that. When you have the user manual, trust me, things are way easier. Then sometimes you have the user manual, you manage to make it work, and still that's not what you want. That's another problem. And this is where you have to draw your conclusion, because being avoidant doesn't prevent you from working on the relationship. It's two separate things. Sometimes we assume that they're avoidant, they don't care, they dismiss things, so they don't invest in the relationship. But in a way, when you decide to commit to a relationship, when you're in love with someone, you know deep inside that you have to work on your relationship. So if you're avoidant, work on your freaking relationship. Don't let your insecurities take the lead in your life. Myth number 4, avoidants prefer to be alone. So it's always a question of balance. Avoidants, they love to be alone, but also love to spend time with you. They love to spend time with friends. It's just a question of balance. It's just a question of knowing that they can be independent, knowing that they have you. Again, we are back to this secure base. If you look at any books on child psychology, it's about how you create a secure base for your child to go and explore and feel safe to come back when he or she is distressed. And so the preference for to be alone is how they recharge their batteries. So for instance, one of the things where people sort of disagree or there's a misunderstanding, when an anxious is dating someone avoidant, when an anxious is dealing with a problem, the first thing they'll do, they want to explain, they want to discuss, they want to tell them, this is what happened, this is what my boss told me, this is the problem I have at work, help me, right? Or just listen to me. An avoidant will feel like, I have a problem, I need to deal with it myself. I have to, it's hard for me to express those things. So it's not about this idea of I need to be alone, it's just that that's how they deal with challenges. So it's not a rejection of companionship, it's just a question of sometimes they need to be on their own to recharge their batteries. When they have a hard time, they need to deal it on their own, and then they can sort of connect and discuss and have a good time with you. Myth number 5, avoidants are not loyal or committed. I can tell you this is completely wrong. Even when I was really avoidant, I was extremely loyal to my friends. It's just a question of commitment. So when you're dating someone, when you are trying to develop a relationship with someone avoidant, this is usually around commitment. The thing is, they need to feel secure. They need to feel also ready. So obviously there's an element of maturity. If you're avoidant and you're 20 years old, your idea of relationship will not be the same as when you're 30 or 40 years old. So it's very important, if you are trying to be in a relationship early on in your life, in your 20s, and the person you're dating, you see that he or she has a problem with commitment, it's going to be very hard, because that person won't feel the pressure from society, the biological clock of having kids, etc., etc. And they'll feel like, yeah, but I just don't feel like it. And they would assume that when it will be the one, I will feel ready. You never feel ready to commit. You have to make the leap of faith. And so if that person doesn't want to challenge their insecurities and their definition of commitment, you're wasting your time if you're in your 20s. If you're in your 30s and you know that that person had other long relationships, then it's just a question of the nature of commitment. So what you have to understand is, and which is true with avoidant, with anxious, with secure people, what matters is only the actions. We don't care about the rest. And avoidant, sometimes they would be invested in the beginning or be inconsistent in terms of their words, but what really matters and how they show affection is through actions and consistency. Right? And it's very important because sometimes we expect the other to function like us. We expect our partner to communicate like we do, to use the same language. You are speaking a different language than your partner. And so it's all about understanding their point of view, understanding where they're coming from, their limitation, their potential, their skills, their weaknesses, and work around that. Again, if you discover that it's not what you want, leave the relationship, find someone else. If you understand, okay, this is what he needs, this is how he functions, this is what he needs to recharge, this is what he needs in terms of this is like sort of his boundaries, because the problem with avoidant is that they're not great at communicating their needs. Now I can adapt, I can sort of work around those things and be more secure, use effective communication, and work around this. Myth number 6, avoidants don't get attached. This is completely wrong. We have all a deep need to be attached at the basis of attachment theory. What happens is that their approach to attachment is there's a conflict with independence and self-sufficiency. And so that's why their attachment, they don't manifest themselves. So if you look at a family who are avoidants, they will spend their weekends on their own rooms, which will feel weird, but they're happy to be together in the same house, which is very strange. So they don't necessarily hang out, have deep conversations. They hang out in the same house, but in different rooms. So it's important to recognize the signs of affection, the language, the limitation of someone who's avoidant. Conclusion, it's important to focus on the facts versus perception, which is true in every single area of your life. So the thing is, your partner is complex, I'm complex, you're complex, everybody's complex. It sounds very cliche, but it's a good reminder to, again, understand that when you don't understand someone, when it feels tricky and complex, it's because humans are complex. And attachment theory is actually a very simple way, very simple grid framework to read and understand people. So use that when you in the context of your relationship. And it's about developing more empathy, which doesn't mean that you need to accept everything. Empathy is the ability to understand your partner's not only point of view, but also where they come from, their operating system, their belief system, and understand their needs, their boundaries, the limitation, what can you expect from them. So once you know that, you basically have the user manual and can make it work. If you have any other questions or anything else on this topic, let me know in the comment section. There are a few things in the description I forgot to mention. Have a look, it's totally free. I'm doing this for you, doing this again for you to expand your horizon and finally understand what works for you, whether this relationship works for you, whether this partner is the right one, and whether you need to continue, whether you need to leave the relationship. I'm not making the call, you are. Take care.